Hello and welcome to the Android Fireside Chat. We have a lot of content today. We're going to get through that first and see if we can get to the questions next. If we could get to the next slide. Guess we're ready for some questions. So we do actually have one question to start it off, if we could go to that one as well. So someone asked online on the Twitter thread, why is it called a fireside chat if there is no fire? I thought this was a pretty good question. So the answer to that would be all right, so warm yourselves by the fire. We're going to ask some questions. You're going to ask some questions. We're going to try to answer those questions. So we pre-rolled some questions online. It was interesting to see what people were thinking online. So we have some of those. We'll interleave those questions with questions from the audience. I will show you how that works in a second. First, let's introduce the panel. I'm Chet Haas, Android Toolkit team.
Dave Burke, I get blamed for most things.
Steph Cuthbertson, I work on the developer experience.
Romain Guy, I work on graphics in Kotlin.
Arash, I work on Play and Instant Apps.
Diane Hackborn, I manage the framework team.
I'm Xavier Ducroix, I work on the tools team.
We have also a bunch of other people from the engineering team to my stage right here. So if one of these people can't answer it, then maybe one of the people in the audience can't answer it either. So let me show you how this is going to work. We have a couple of questions to kick it off, and then we'll kick it out to the audience from there. So first of all, what's an exciting feature that you're working on for the next release? Romain, do you want to take that one?
No, I don't.
OK, that's a really good example to keep in mind. We do not answer questions about future development, kind of a policy thing that we have. I would say 90% of the questions that I got on the Twitter thread when I asked were about future development. So that makes it easy. We don't have to answer those.
This is going really well.
Yeah. So we'll be done in the next 2 minutes. All right, let's ask a more real question. I'll toss this to Romain again. Will Android architecture components be a de facto architecture choice with continuous Google support? That's like continuous builds, except for support.
So, very long answer, yes. More seriously, we listened. You were asking us to have an opinion about architecture. For many years, we did not have one. You could do whatever you wanted. You can still do whatever you want, but we have a solution. That's our solution. We're going to support it. We have tooling. We have more and more libraries around it. We have documentation, tons of talks. So if you like it, or if you don't even know what architecture you want to use, go with that one.
So there you go. That's an example. In fact, it was a real question and kind of a real answer as well. I would invite everybody in the audience to ask a question. There are 2 microphones down here. We were curious how long it would take people to get to the microphones, so it's going to be kind of a Hunger Games kind of thing going on. So please come up to the mics and ask a question. If people in the audience don't ask questions, I have some here, so we can certainly do that. I see someone walking up right there. Why don't we start with that one? Go ahead.
The mic is too tall for me. So following up the question about architecture components, I remember Diane posting online saying that, like, you know, look, we gave you activity, we gave you content provider, we gave you all these things. That's the agnostic platform. You can do whatever you want with it. Like, we're not going to impose any choices on you. I'm sure there are other people on the Android team who agreed with her. I wonder what Diane and those other people might think about architecture components. Is this like a perversion of what, like, their vision of Android, or is this like
All wrong.
or is this something that, like, okay, well, I understand why some people might need it, but if you want to do things weirdly, you can do that. Like, was there a debate about architecture components?
So the answer to that is that basically all still holds true as far as the core platform is concerned. So you can think of, like, and when I say I manage the framework team, it's really the core platform. This is the stuff that's shipped onto the device that is, like, defines what you can do with the device. And we want to keep that still generic, not enforcing any particular model on applications where it doesn't make sense, because we want to have a lot of flexibility for applications to do new things and iterate on things and all that kind of stuff. The architecture components are basically a layer on top that, it's very different because it's in the support library, so it can actually evolve very rapidly with the applications. It can change and break because it's not going to break applications when those changes happen. So we're basically putting a new layer on top of the platform that gives our very strong position on how we think applications should be developed, which will probably actually evolve very much over time as the world changes.
Yes, and let's face it, every few years engineers decide that there's a new and better way of architecturing things. We had MVC, then MVP, then MVVC. We discovered MVI the other day on Twitter. I have no idea what it is. I think you're just making that up at this point. So yeah, I'm sure in a few years it will have evolved to something else. Or
I also want to tell a funny story about that post that you referred to of Diane's, because we were talking about it backstage like 3 minutes ago, or a few minutes ago. How many people here have read that post of Diane's? See, I told you. So many people have read that post, and I remember you posted it, and then it got like 125 comments. And I remember I walked back to Diane's office, and I said, Diane, do we need to have an opinion? And she said, I think we might need to. So it was been great to get the feedback, and it really helped us figure out how to evolve.
Thanks. How about over here?
Hi there. A question on media formats, codecs. Is there anything beyond the HDR VP9 that's new in P that you can talk about?
so something about
Can you
HDR
come
VP9.
closer to the
It's a
mic,
little
maybe?
hard
It's
to
really the acoustic
Sorry.
very difficult.
There we go.
Great.
Audio, video codecs, new formats in P that you can talk about beyond the VP9 HDR support.
New codecs in P. I remember, we added a bunch of Bluetooth codecs like AAC and LDAC to go beyond SBC. I don't think we added any codecs in P. I'm looking down. Phone a friend. This is when I called to the Android team. Yeah, everyone's shaking their head. I don't think we added any new codecs in P. I think.
All right.
Our consensus is no.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, first of all, I just wanted to thank you all for all your hard work.
Thank them.
And everyone, actually. So it's been a great I.O. And I think you've made a lot of progress in just listening to the community, so it's been awesome. My question is going to be about testing, which I know it's going to be
Really?
a real shocker.
Okay.
Chet, that's a question for you.
Somehow I knew
So
that.
it's a question, obviously, for Chet. At the Android keynote 2 days ago, Chet actually had 2 slides on testing. One was something about fluent assertions. The other had a picture of a drink with a straw on it. It was about the ability to mock final static things in the Android framework.
Yep.
And then Romain made an awesome comment. He's like, Chet looks confused, And I was also confused. I don't know why you would want, to kind of, not maybe give that ability, but highlight as one of the important things in testing. Because later in the testing talk, we actually talked about the fact that that's kind of undesirable. We don't want to have people do that. So could we get some comment on what is our official stance on actually using that very powerful and dangerous approach to testing?
What's your opinion?
I don't know. I don't have.
Official stance is probably a little strong, but I would say there are probably more better approaches to testing, such as the other stuff that I talked about, the ATSL stuff that's in Jetpack now, Espresso, testing frameworks that actually do things correctly. However, you heard from the audience's response to the ability to mock the framework that sometimes developers need, for whatever purpose, the ability to do that. And the framework is really about providing the capabilities that you need for your particular situation. So by providing the ability to mock the framework specific methods more easily, we're saying here is a facility if it's important to you and necessary for what you're doing. It may not be the right general approach overall, but if it's a piece that people feel they need, there's a bit of plumbing for you. I don't know if anybody else had a different take on this. Does that help?
I mean, I guess I could add a little bit. There's like philosophically, like not having finals and stacks and stuff is fine. The issue is within the platform we have those in the APIs.
And that's for a good reason, actually.
Right. Yeah. So But so that means that if you do want to mock something in the platform anywhere, you need to be able to do that. And so like we had actually a discussion about like getting these into Mockito, and there was like, no, this is wrong. You shouldn't do this. But like we kind of reached the agreement that like, well, in this case, it actually is, like it makes sense. This is like something we need to do. So that's why it happened.
So it was kind of like for the framework developers almost.
It's for well, not for framework developers, but for anyone who's writing tests where they want to mock out framework APIs.
Okay, that makes.
Like you have, like a context that you get a window manager from, and you want to mock out the window manager object to see if the correct calls happen on it.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
What's your current thinking around Android tablets? I mean,
They like them.
do you still see it as like a device type within the base platform, or are you like winding it down and chucking it over to Chrome OS?
I'm missing. If you can get closer to the mic, thanks.
Like, do you still see it as a base part of the platform, or have you chucked it over to the Chrome OS guys? Because it's kind of like we're getting mixed signals, and it's like with Chrome OS they support Android, but they don't put Android first. They have a different system UI, so it's like, is there going to be a tablet version of the new P overview swipe thingy, whatever, I guess?
Good question. So from a platform perspective, we support tablets. We have since Honeycomb, we still support tablets. From a Google Pixel perspective, which is a product team, they've been focused on sort of the crossover form factors, so tablets crossing over with laptops, so the Pixelbook, for example. And once you have a hard keyboard, Chrome OS is a really nice operating system. And so what they've done is they've brought brought Android apps running within Chrome OS. And to us, purists on the Android team, it's actually a nice thing because it's the same apps that run on a Chromebook with Android as on a tablet. And so insofar as it's helping Android's ecosystem have better large screen landscapes, in this case, apps, it's all helping. Like it helps tablets too. Yeah, that's sort of the status. As far as the platform's concerned, we support tablets. There's a lot of Android tablets. Yeah.
All right.
You look like you're not done with your question.
Or you're not happy with my answer.
It just seems Chromebooks are still focused on web first. Yes, they support Android, but they're not like, they don't put it first. So it's like, what's the story from the developer side? AKA, I bought Pixel C, you don't support it anymore, but it's like, should we be buying Chromebooks and like detachable Chromebooks for develop on, or?
I mean, you should buy whatever device you think is good for you to buy. I use a Pixelbook, by the way. I love it. I think it's good. And I run Android apps on it. That's me personally. But I think everyone should pick whatever product they want. From our perspective, as a platform operating system provider, it's important that Android supports tablets and has good tablet apps. And that's what we focus on.
All right, thanks.
So I went to one of the sessions, which was the best practices for kind of the current state of Android, and you guys went over the current way to do constraint layouts and databases, but I was wondering, you guys didn't really go over what kind of you think we should be doing for networking. I know a few years ago you guys were pushing Volley really hard, but now I feel like there's Volley and Retrofit and 15 other libraries, and I know it kind of depends on what your use case is, but if you were going to say, for someone starting off, what would you recommend for the networking manager for us to use in an Android app?
Recommend for what?
For networking.
Networking.
Like making network requests, just a regular GET request. That kind of stuff.
Someone in the peanut gallery says retrofit. You want to have a vote on that? Yes? Okay. Yeah, Volley was the right thing for some things at the time. I think that there are probably other more evolved libraries out there that might be the right solution. And I think all libraries do non-overlapping things, so I don't think there's an exact match. But they said retrofit. I certainly hear a lot of good things about that. One of the, there we go. One of the things that we're doing, coincidental with architecture components, but it's not necessarily the same thing, is that when there's a good library out there that we didn't happen to build, we're happy to recommend it. That goes for retrofit, it goes for things like Picasso, for image loading, Glide as well. Whatever the thing is, like if that's a good library, why should we reinvent that thing? In this case. All right, maybe not retrofit Are we done?
Did you plan that?
All right. Thanks.
I can add, we've been walking around, and several people have talked with have asked if we can recommend more libraries specifically outside of Google, the ones created by the community, which that we think work best. And so I think that's been great question and great advice. It's always been our intention with Jetpack to have an opinion about the best way to do development, because several of you have said that saves time. You don't have to look at a bunch of things, or 6, as Jonathan always tells me. So I think it's been great feedback.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
Is this close enough? Yeah, it is. So a lot of the examples we've seen for code during I/O, not close enough. A lot of the examples we've seen for code during I/O have been Kotlin code. And I guess a question that I kind of have is, what's the long-term things that developers can expect if they have a large code base that's still in Java?
Let me make sure the question was, what should developers expect if they have a code base in Java programming language?
Right, like
Yeah,
long-term support from Google.
So when we invested in Kotlin, we knew that was going to be an investment for the long term. So we're completely committed to the language. We also knew when we invested in Kotlin, that day, whenever it was, May 17th, that it meant that we were doubling down on all of our languages. And a lot of you have also said that we needed to do more to support the existing languages we had. So the way we saw it was, we're not choosing a new language, we're investing in all of our languages. And in fact, you can see that in C++. We've launched NDK build, CMake. We've significantly improved the NDK. We launched the new C++ profiler over here, the toolchain. In the Java programming languages, we added Java 8. Java.time is my personal favorite. And you should expect to see us continue to invest in our languages. It's really important with such a large ecosystem to support the ecosystem where it is. At the same time, we've seen a tremendous interest in Kotlin. I think we talked about some of the statistics. And so like 28 of the top 100 apps, 35% of pro developers. It's had 6x growth in 1 year. So if you haven't looked at the language, we do think it's a good idea to take a look. But hopefully that helps answer that question.
And to what you are saying, that's why it took us so long to support another language, because the community has been asking for different languages over the years. I mean, it's been 10 years since Android launched. But we wanted to make sure that whichever one we picked, we would support truly and correctly without dropping the other one. So we took our time, we think we made the right choice, and we're going to keep working on all 3 languages that we support today.
Thanks.
I can tell that Zav wants to say something, so I'm going to toss a tools question over to him. So are there any plans for tools for build speed, profiling, and optimizing? I think the context of the question was not, can you make the build faster, but if they see their build is taking a long time, are there tools, are there approaches that they can take to find out what it is that's taking time so that they can optimize it?
Yes. Yeah, we see a lot of developers having a lot of issues not being able to make their build faster. And we definitely want to help there. There's already a lot of resources that you can use. Gradle has build scans that allow you to really get a lot of insight into your build, so you can definitely use that. But we realized that having something integrated in Studio would be extremely useful, so it's definitely something we're considering.
Okay.
So I downloaded the Android P beta, and I'm having a good time on it, but my question is, why'd y'all remove the clear all on the overview tab?
Yes. I asked that exact question to the team about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and they sighed at me like, oh, and oh, they're over there. Oh, Dan Sandler.
Yeah, the team's here.
Hey team, I told you so.
So there are 2 answers. One is, Android is managing the memory, as well as you can. You don't need to swipe things away for Android to be able to reclaim that memory in order to be able to run other things. The second answer is, yeah, sorry about that. We're looking at bringing it back.
I can tell you, I have a build that's after beta 1 on my phone, and I can proudly tell you there's a clear all button on it. So it's coming back. Weeks. Yes.
So in 2014, I was at the Moscone Center, and I asked you guys a question if you were going to keep maintaining Eclipse, and I'm really glad that you were not. I'm 100% on the Android Studio wagon now. I still worry about build times, which was one of the questions that I had then. But my question to you guys is, what are the warts that you wish you could redo from Android 1.0? So if you could do Android 1.0 again, what would you change?
Oh, so many things. The UI toolkit, the graphics pipeline.
Ouch.
I did some of that.
I know.
Would not let applications write settings.
I've often thought that designing APIs is building future regret. I have never yet created an API that I haven't regretted something about in the future. I believe that they ran really fast. I was not there at the time, and therefore they were able to get it out the door, and now we have time to actually fix some of those warts. What we can't do is remove methods and break applications, right? So we have been improving things, hopefully, and introducing new facilities to make things better, but we can't actually get rid of some of the things that we regret because we don't want to break the apps that are depending on it. So there is that little bit of stuff that we can't quite totally fix, but we can improve other things along the way.
Yeah, there's a number of things that you find just like we did 10 years ago, and like today you're like, oh my gosh, that is not scaling. And like one of the ones that really stands out is broadcasts. We've gone through. Our initial decision to say, like, by default, when you send the broadcast, it just goes to any manifest receiver that wants to receive it, was a really bad decision. And we've learned this like over the last few years as we've seen on devices like more and more applications waking up when just random things happening. So we have been going through this really painful process with the background restrictions and all that kind of stuff to try to get control of that again.
Is this a good time to file a bug report? Because I've noticed on my build that when I change between cell and Wi-Fi, it's slowing down a little bit. There's a little bit of jank, which I know is broadcast because of network change. So, Tim Murray, we gotta fix that bug. Okay. Just having a team one-on-one here.
I'd also add multi-APK. I kind of wish we had moved to the app bundle style optimization much earlier. Like the version code management, the multi-APK sharding, and the build time it would impose was just a lot of burden to put on developers like you, and really excited that we're removing that.
Thanks.
Right. Hi.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
It's deeply jarring to see myself on that screen. Hi. So I've been doing Android development for a while now, and I've really loved, over the past few IOs, your guys' continued investment in improving tooling and, supporting Kotlin as a first-class language, creating architecture components. This year at I/O, we've also heard a lot about Flutter, which I understand to be the kind of cross-platform mobile SDK. What do you all see in the future of these two platforms in terms of Google's investment? Like, will one supplant the other? Do we all need to learn Dart? What's the kind of 5-year, 10-year view of that?
Right, so Google is a big company. We do a lot of things, and as you can see in the keynotes, we explore the future. We have tons of experiments. Flutter is an exploration of cross-platform development, and we're excited because, the Android platform is a place where both internal teams and external teams can build this kind of exploration and experiments. They recently reached beta, and we're watching and we're waiting for the feedback from developers. So we're excited that so much is happening on the Android platform.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi. So Android is now 10 years old, and my question is, what happens when the first developer certificates start to expire?
When
the developer certificates start to expire, do you have like a mechanism how to rotate the keys?
Honestly, I don't know. Ben? We'll follow up after.
Let us know when it happens.
It's so confidence-inspiring that you guys.
So yes, we are obviously aware of this. There were guidance back then to use certificates with long expirations, like 30 years, which from a security best practices point of view, in retrospect, another thing we probably would do differently. Better support for key rotation. So I think, as you can see in the OSP code, there is some work towards. We've had some previous experience with key sets, and now there's some more work going on with new APK formats to support this better in the future, but it's still work in progress. But it is something that is actively being worked on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Android is 10 now. What happens when it turns into a teenager? And
Exactly.
I didn't want to get into that one. Yes.
Hi guys, love your work. Recycler View is awesome. Is that better? Recycler View is quite awesome.
Thanks. Next question.
But there's still a few places in the platform where you still need to use base adapters like list view, spinners. I think there's some remote views that might use it. And
Did you say slices? Sorry.
Remote views, yeah, and alert dialog. I was just wondering if you guys see that as a problem, or if you want to expand the awesomeness of Recycler View to more places.
We are certainly continuing to work on Recycler View to integrate more of what people need in that component. We don't want it to be a kitchen sink of all things, but it is certainly possible to expand it into more use cases that make sense for it. I don't know if somebody over there wants to take it. Yeah, Adam.
Adam, UI Toolkit team. So yeah, I think that right now one of the biggest things that kind of impedes doing more of the integration of Recycler View with some of the other stuff in the framework is exactly some of what Chet was saying earlier, which is that we can't do a lot of really key changes to some of the stuff in the framework there without breaking apps, and Recycler View is a conscious effort to break from some of those existing APIs at the time, so those aren't directly one-to-one compatible. So the stuff that's in the framework right now is still going to be there in order to support the existing app ecosystem. But as we start building new things, I would expect to see a lot more things built on top of Recycler View and other Jetpack libraries like that.
Thanks.
Hi, can you hear me?
Closer is good.
Sorry. So it looks like there is a shift towards single activity applications. I was wondering to get some background on the decisions behind that, and maybe when you should use a single activity application versus a multi-activity application.
Sure. Did you hear that?
Single activity.
Single activity applications.
Yeah, this is. Well, I'm going to be the first to say I don't have a strong opinion either way on, but we definitely, as the UI experience have gotten more sophisticated, it's definitely clear that trying to do seamless transitions and all the things you want to do between activities doesn't really work very well, and there's really no need. You can think of activities as basically the only place you really need activities is where you need main entry points into your application. Right, and so once you're in the application, whether you use activities or fragments or whatever else is kind of irrelevant to the operating system, and we are leaning heavily on fragments with all the new
navigation
and all that kind of stuff. So that's.
Are there any memory management concerns with activities, like having everything in one activity?
Very memory management? I'm not.
Profile your app?
Okay.
Most of the stuff that you're building at that point should be based on some of the other lifecycle events as things are coming and going, as you're adding and removing components from that single container. So the shutdown process should be pretty similar, whether that's a separate activity or whether that's another fragment.
Thanks. Hi.
Hi there. So this is close enough, right? Okay.
Closer is
my
better.
question is about the new digital well-being in Android P.
Mm-hmm.
So there was presented in a keynote this option of actually defining a limiter in time for usage of particular apps. So I was wondering, because they're already on the Play Store for some years, some apps that actually offer this functionality. Like, did you guys base this idea for those features based on apps existing or some research, particular some psychology research or something like that? And is there any API that third-party apps can just use to contribute to this digital well-being idea in the operating system?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great apps on the Play Store, not just for this, but also like Headspace and Calm and sort of like the bigger area of wellness. What we've done is basically created some low-level system APIs to do things that you couldn't ordinarily do in an app. Like we turn the screen grayscale, or we disable app launcher icons. And we're also giving hooks for app developers to have deep links into their app to provide more information. I haven't looked so closely at the system APIs to explain what all you could do on top of them, but Dan?
I just wanted to throw in, if you want to help out with the mission of digital wellness, read up on the docs for how notifications and do not disturb mode work together. So, for example, post notifications with enough metadata that the user can there are ways in Do Not Disturb mode to say, oh, starred contacts get through or certain apps get through. You populate all that information. You give the user more ability to safely enter the Do Not Disturb modes that we provide, knowing that they're not going to miss important stuff. Another way you can work with Do Not Disturb mode to help the user manage their space is to actually respect it, right? So you can actually see what the state of the device is, and maybe this now is not the right time to try to get the user's attention. Right? So there are ways that you can already work with, and those APIs are already in the platform. We've tuned them up a little bit for P, but most of the stuff has been in there since we introduced Do Not Disturb and then improved it with channels in O. So look at those APIs, put those data on the notifications to be able to interoperate as best you can with the Do Not Disturb feature we've already got.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question. If I'm interested in somehow contributing with ideas or like working together in this area, it will be really cool if I have a contact, some kind of contact I can refer to.
Jobs at google.com.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I have a question about the Google Play services. You jumped from version 12 to 15. What happened in between?
Hotels jump from 12 to 14 on their floors. We just wanted to go one better. I don't know the story behind that. Versioning Google Play services?
I think the release just started to overlap. We were testing a bunch of experiments, and we decided that we should just snowplow forward to the latest release for all users as opposed to maintaining a bunch of experiments.
We're not good at continuity.
Nothing hidden in there.
It was 3 better.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Yes.
Okay. Is the sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So in our company, our goal is to build an APK with the least size, so the users in third world countries or like developing countries, they don't have to spend more data to download the APK. So when last year you guys released Kotlin, we didn't ship because we read that Kotlin will increase the APK size. So we're trying to save even if it's like 100K in the APK size. So how are you going to address that? Like, is it still the same case? If I try to move to Kotlin, will my APK size increase?
That's probably a good question for Ben and Brian Karlstrom and Jeffrey Van Gogh.
So I run the R8 team. So R8 is our new shrinker. And so we added Kotlin-specific optimizations to make the code smaller. And we can actually do quite a bit of things that you couldn't do in Java because we have richer information about your code when you're coding in Kotlin. We just started, and R8 is still experimental, but I'd encourage you to take a look at R8 and see if it helps your case.
Can they try out R8 right now? Is that in beta?
Yeah, it's an experimental feature in Android Studio 3.2, and there's docs on how to opt into that. Brian?
So if you'd like to try the new R8 compiler, just download the latest preview of Android Studio 3.2.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
First off, excellent work on Android P, everyone. As a follow-up question about the clear all notification, why is the clock on the wrong side?
Actually, the start side, because if you're in LTR, everything flips over. I don't know why I reached for the microphone. I didn't really want to. No, this is, I mean, this comes from the display cutout stuff that we see coming from OEMs. We know we need to distribute things from one side of the status bar to the other. Some of us have kind of always been a little uncomfortable about the asymmetry of the status bar. Like the most neutral state is everything kind of like on the right-hand side, again, the end-hand side. So by moving the clock over, not only are we able to create a consistent experience across Android devices, irrespective of whether they have an unbroken top edge of the display panel, but we can bring just a little more balance to it overall.
I'll point out too that if you prefer it on the right side, just take your phone and turn it around. It's 180 degrees. It works perfectly every time.
But then the notch would be on the bottom.
Well, there's other issues. I'm just saying, it depends on personal preference.
I actually, just as a personal anecdote, when we first moved the clock over, I was like, oh, what are we doing? Why? And then I think about 7 or 8 days later, I was like, somebody came up to me and said, are you still really worried about the clock? I'm like, no, it's fine. So you get used to it really quickly.
Yes.
Yes. We use features such as Android Enterprise. Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So we use features such as Android Enterprise and Safety Net, but we have a lot of customers with users in China. And so we wanted to know if there's any guidance you can provide for helping those users.
Ben?
I'm only getting that because nobody knows. For China, it's complicated, right? I'm not gonna. Google has limited access there, the servers, the whole issue. So I don't have a good answer for you for what to do for China, other than it is something that I think myself and a few others here think an awful lot about. And the shortest answer is it's complicated, but we're not necessarily giving up on it. Because it is a problem that we recognize there's an awful lot of developers that need to deal with that market, and we need to do more. I'm not sure what that means in terms of specifics, but it is something that's on my mind.
Thank you.
Thanks. Probably time for a couple more questions. We are running out of time. We'll get to as many as we can. Yes.
Hello. I noticed some stylistic differences between the AOSP Android P version and the version on Pixels, which we saw throughout I/O. Namely, like rounded corners versus square corners and some font choices. And I was wondering what the motivation behind that was.
Sure, I'll take this one too. They're small touches. I mean, you just said yourself, we're talking about fonts, colors, rounded corners. Functionally, we try to keep those devices or those targets as close as possible, because if it's good for Pixel, it's good for everybody. But we do have, we want to put a little Google touch on things that we're putting inside a box that's got a nice big Google logo on it. So we use the Google typeface in activities, and we've got some rounded corners and different color choices. Just a little bit of paint.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yes.
With the whole Java lawsuit and court ruling, how is that affecting Android? What should we expect?
Oh no, we're out of time.
Our focus is on developing a great operating system, and that continues to be our focus.
Great answer. Okay, next question.
I was told to wrap this thing up. I did have one more important one from the Twitter thread that I'll end this thing on. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions. We would like to. Someone did ask online, when will Google officially support Kotlin?
Last year?
May 17th, 2017. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.